I've got the runway. Autopilot's coming out.
V1. Rotate.
Welcome back to the flight deck, everyone, as we make our way down the Italian coast. You can see here that we're approaching the northern part of Italy, and then we're going to be flying down the coast, essentially just hugging the shoreline here. And our final waypoint is X-Ray India Bravo India Lima. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. There is our final destination, Rome Fiumicino. So with that, our top of descent is coming up. We're an hour and 35 minutes from pushback, and we're an hour and 23 minutes in the air. A 90 knot, pretty much tailwind the entire way, has really helped us along. The entire flight duration should be just about 2 hours and 40 minutes-ish. So with that, we should probably have a look at the weather and the charts for our arrival to Fiumicino. So the weather in Rome, it's partly cloudy, the temperature is 12, dew point is 10, the wind's out of the west at 4 knots. That's going to come into play here because they've kind of been variable. I mean, the wind is under 5 knots, so technically it's actually calm. We've got scattered clouds at 2,500, and that's about it. No significant change. The QNH is 1001. So with the winds, we'll look here over at the airport overview diagram. Essentially, we've got 3 parallel runways. There are 1634s. Now, runway 16 center, 34 center, is essentially taxiway delta, and from what I've read, it's a taxiway most of the time, except on weekends or when they're working on runway 16 left, 34 right. So pretty much disused, and we're not going to factor this into our arrival game plan at this point. So it's going to be one of the 2 parallels over here. Ideally, with the winds out of the west, we would probably be landing on runway 25. But I had a look at the airport information, and the preferential runways are the parallels here, whereas the crossing runway is used mostly for departures. Now, with the winds out of the west, it's pretty much 90 degrees crosswind, very light one, but still a crosswind, whether we're landing on the 16s or the 34s. Now, the 16 left, 34 right is the preferred one, from what I can tell, for landing. So that's the one I want to focus on. And initially, the winds were a little bit more from the north, so I had planned for runway 34 right. But now, as they're coming pretty much as from a crosswind, since we're coming from the north anyways, to save a little bit of time on that transition, and instead of going downwind and coming back circling around for 34 right, I'm leaning more towards 16 left. Now, there's no ATC on, unfortunately, at Rome. There's also no traffic coming out of or going into Rome. There were about 4 or 5 departures earlier, but they've since departed. So with that, we have a little bit of leeway in terms of our game plan. So I'm leaning more towards 16 left for our arrival. As I said, primarily because we're coming in from the north, and then we can save a little bit of fuel, a little bit of gas and time, rather than circling around for the northernly runways. So 16 left, and the other reason is, well, because this is, add-on scenery, which I kind of want to showcase a little bit, and we're flying from the right-hand seat of the aircraft, we might be able to see a little bit from the terminal if we're on the right-hand side of the aircraft coming in on 16 left. But I mean, that's a secondary kind of a perk of the decision. So with that, there's another thing is the arrival charts are a little bit outdated. Let me just scroll down here to the stars. I had them earlier. There we go, stars. So we're coming in here from the northwest, from Zibil, or however you want to pronounce that. If we just rotate this the correct way, rotate clockwise. There we go. By the way, these are the charts included with the Aerosoft download of this particular scenery. So we are coming in from Zibil, and essentially coming in from the northwest down southeasterly. Here's the airfield. Now, going past it on the Zibble 1 Romeo doesn't sound like a very efficient plan, so I don't know if this is going to be reflected in the ATC. Again, these are slightly outdated charts, but my game plan is essentially to find something close in the FMC to come down towards Nanook's around here, and then make our transition to final for 1-6 left down here. The airfield is with the 3 runways is highlighted down here. So that's our game plan. I'll pull up the ILS chart for 1-6 left in just a little bit, but in the meantime, we'll get back into the flight deck. We'll have a mess around with the FMC a little bit. I have the transition altitude is 6,000. The airport elevation is 16 feet above sea level, so we can get most of the things nice and set up into the flight deck, and we'll have a look at the actual ILS chart once we've made our final decision on our arrival runway. Okay, those of you who are familiar with the way I proceed with an arrival, you'll know that I keep one of the NDs on, and we put it in the plan mode, and we bring up our 2 FMCs, the corresponding one for the plan we bring down to our final waypoint, like so. So we have a nice good overview of what's going to be happening. So there's our Zibble, the final waypoint, and there's our arrival airport. Go into the arrivals and departures, the Rome arrivals. We said the ILS X-ray 16 left. The arrival was the Zibble 14 Alpha for 16. So let's see what that does for us. Then we've got Zibble, then we've got RF04. Let's go ahead and step. So this ends at Tango Alpha Quebec. We can go ahead and plug that in as a transition, and then tighten it up a little bit on the ND. Step, no discontinuities. That brings us to a nice final. That looks fantastic to me. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and execute that. We'll zoom it back out a little bit. We'll start plugging in our descent oh, nope, that's not what I wanted. I want forecast. So our transition level is 6,000. The QNH is 1001, which we said. I'll plug in some of the descent winds off camera, and we'll have a look at the ILS chart for 1-6 left. I'm pretty sure that's the one that we're going to go with in the end, just because there's nobody really around, and we can save a little bit of gas by doing all that. So let's just see in the meantime if, while we're checking on that chart, if we have a restriction coming up. It doesn't look very 140, 4,000, 2,500. Let's plug it down to 140 for now. Like so. And that way, following the VNAV path, the aircraft will automatically start to descend. You can see I've just brought my physical throttle levers back. And the aircraft will start to descend on its own using the VNAV path. I'll plug in some winds while we check our ILS chart. So this is the best I could do for an ILS chart. It's the one that comes with the scenery. The radio frequency for the ILS is 1081. The inbound course is going to be 161. We're going to be coming from this early direction, Gulpo 4,000 or above. Our ultimate altitude is going to be 2,500 by 10 DME, which is going to be our final approach fix. And Category C minimums for a Cat 1 approach will be 290. Is that radio or barrel? This is, hang on, feet per meter is 200. So let's plug in 200. Yeah, 290 baro is our minimums for the radio altimeter for the, or sorry, the baro altimeter for the approach. 161 and 108.1. Beautiful Italian coastline as we are back in the flight deck. So a couple of things have already been done. The barometric minimums have been put in, 290 feet. Our standby QNH is 1001 hectopascals. We can go ahead and put auto brakes number 2. We could probably get away with auto brakes number 1, but I tend to float the 737 and I like to play it a little bit cautious, so we can always disengage those and use manual braking a little bit early. Didn't bother with the descent winds because the profile's looking fine for now. we can go ahead and select our landing speed, flaps 30, 146, so we'll put in our VREF of 151, and all of that is done. We've already plugged in our nav radios to the ILS frequency. Actually, I've only done it once because the other one is incorrect. It's 108.1, like so. You can see that the HGS, the heads-up guidance, the standby mode automatically goes to IMC 8. So that's a good way of cross-checking and making sure that both of your nav radios are set to the correct, not course, but radio frequency. You can go ahead and bong the passengers, get the seatbelt signs on, and we can also, we're flight level 260, we can go ahead and bug down. We know 4,000 is a pretty safe altitude to begin with. As we get a little bit closer, it'll be 2,500 to intercept the ILS. Fighting an 85 knot crosswind at the moment, but again, it should smooth out, especially once we get a little bit lower. All of the lights are set. Everything looks good on the overhead. Pressurization looks fine, and I'm happy with all of this. So we'll just continue to fly down on LNAV mode and VNAV mode as we make our way down the coast. And we should be on the ground in about 20, let's see, let's have a look here. Progress page, 1040, in about 20 minutes or so with 8.6 tons of fuel. Again, a higher reserve just because, well, we put in 6 tons of reserve fuel, but with that tailwind, we're going to end up with a little bit more than we had planned. It's totally acceptable, totally fine. And I am happy with all of this. So we'll see you in a bit. A little bit hazy at this time, but we're not too worried about that. Still an autopilot. That should take us down to, well, minimums are 290, so that'll be fine. In preparation, the fasten seatbelt signs are already on. We could just go ahead and ding the flight attendants. We'll turn our engine switches to continuous, or start switches to continuous rather. And our speed brake is now armed. So I've got the ILS, the approach on our ND over here on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, I'm still in the map mode. I'll leave that on for a little bit more. We're preparing to intercept the localizer. I'm going to go ahead and switch VOR Locon, arm that. So as we approach the localizer, we'll hopefully make a nice smooth transition to final. You can see we're already under the glide slope. We're on local QNH, which is 1001 hectopascals. And we've just passed the tiny little green circle on our ND, which indicates our decel point. So the aircraft is beginning to slow itself to the flaps up speed. We'll leave it at flaps up speed for now. There's our 10 nautical mile range ring from the runway, which will indicate our when we should intercept the glide slope. Still below it, that's fine with me. Auto brakes 2, speed brake is armed. Everything is looking good. It's a shame we can't see a little bit more of the Roman countryside, but you know, So we bugged down to 2,500 feet. That is our target altitude. We're at 3,400 for 2,500. There's our 1,000 to go.
2,500.
That is checked. There's the Roman countryside, and we begin our right-hand turn to final. Go ahead and take flaps 1. Add a little bit of drag as the speed starts to climb away from us. Hopefully that comes back down. You can see that we're intercepting the localizer. And localizer is captured. Speed's coming back now, which is what I want to see. Level off at 2,500. Let that speed bleed out a little bit. We'll go ahead and arm approach. $220. We can bring up flaps 5. Flaps 5 traveling. Beautiful. And here comes the glide. Glide slope captured. Gears coming out. With that, we'll continue decelerating. We'll take flaps 15. We'll go ahead and bug that down. We want it all the way down to 151, which is our VREF plus 5. Everything's looking great. Go ahead and set flaps 30 now. Sync up our headings. There we go. Everything's looking good, stable. Still don't have the runway, but that's fine. We'll leave it in autopilot until we get the some sort of indication of the runway. Engine's spooling up a little bit. Alright, all the shiny switches out. Turn offs, taxi light. Come on. There we go. There's the Pappies. We're aiming for 1.6 left, which should be right around there somewhere. There's the outer marker. Beautiful Roman countryside. Not sure where the city would be if we passed it. That's checked. I've got the runway. Autopilot's coming out. Looking good. A little bit low. Gonna try to level that out a little bit. Kind of a hazy day. I don't know about that 10 miles visibility there. A little bit to the right, correcting left. Still a little bit low. It's fine. We're visual at this point, so I'm not too fussed. I'm going to try to correct a little bit to the left.
300.
That's checked.
Approaching minimums. 200. Minimums.
Landing.
Light slow.
That's fine. Auto throttle's
50.
coming out. Idle.
30. 20. 10.
And beautiful. Nice and smooth for Fly UK. So, reverse coming out. Reverse green. Idle reverse is more than enough. Well, with auto brakes too. There's 70 knots. 50 knots. Manual braking. Reverser stowed. And welcome to Rome Fiumicino. We'll continue on the runway here. We could have easily vacated on that taxiway there with a little bit more braking, but since the terminal's down over there, come up with a game plan for the taxi. I haven't actually even picked a stand yet for the for us yet, but probably around Terminal 1 or Terminal 2. Not quite sure where we would park at this particular airport. First time here. We'll get a nice view on the taxi in of Rome, or at least of their airport. So we'll vacate over here to the right. We'll get cleaned up once we've vacated, turn off the transponder, all that good stuff. Awesome. Alright. Nice and green down here. Change from the winter weather. So, now that we are vacated, we'll hold short of, well, what is either Delta or runway 16 center, and clean up the aircraft. I'll have a quick look at the charts, and we'll pick a parking spot, and we'll come up with a game plan. So we vacated here on Delta Hotel, and this is the Delta taxiway, or the runway, the center. And my game plan is to taxi down Hotel, and then follow that essentially all the way down here to, I believe this is still Delta. If we take a look at the ramp area, we'll be coming in from this area, Delta, and we'll vacate Papa, and somewhere around here maybe, Terminal 1 and 2, around here somewhere is where we plan to park. So, runway 16 center slash taxiway Delta. We'll make the left turn here. I'm keeping the shiny switches on. We'll keep some of the landing lights on, and the strobe lights, just because this may be a runway. So we'll leave those on for now. Auto brake is disarmed. Lights configured for now. So we'll follow this all the way down, and it becomes taxiway Delta, or still is taxiway Delta, and then take that to the terminal somewhere over there. Sounds good? Sounds good. If you think I should have done something differently, well, it's a little too late now. Go ahead and switch off the weather radar. Oh yeah, we can stop the clock. So 2 hours in the air. We really were helped by that tailwind. Let's hope the ground crew's ready for us. So far so good. I mean, I haven't really had a good look around this this Rome scenery. I've been looking forward to this scenery for quite a while. It's been in development for quite a while. I flew to Rome back in 2009, and ever since then I kind of wanted to recreate that flight. It was a transatlantic flight coming from North America, and I've wanted a good Rome scenery since then. This is recently released Airsoft scenery. Very happy that it finally was released. I was a little bit skeptical. I saw some of the images online, the previews, if you will. They looked all right, but now that I'm actually in it and we're immersed in the reality of Prepare 3D, it's looking pretty good, at least from a distance. We'll see what it looks like when we get close up, when we park. And I'll if you want to stick around for after we've done the shutdown, I'll include a couple of over flights, or a nice look around the airfield, so you can see what you get with the Airsoft Rome scenery. So now that we've vacated the taxiway slash runway, we can go ahead and turn off our strobes and get rid of the landing lights, like so. We can also get rid of the turnoffs. Not quite needed during the day. First look at Rome, kind of empty. Not too much activity down here at this time of the day. I guess we can go ahead and fire up the old Apu. There we go. Yeah, it's looking good. So we said we would vacate the Delta taxiway, rather, up there at, I believe it was Papa or something. And then we'll pick ourselves a parking spot at Terminal 1/2. Guess some sort of administrative building. You can see the tower there in the background. Very nice scenery. Somewhere around here, I guess, is where we'll park up. I guess that's either a parking lot or something under construction. We'll have a closer look a little bit once we've parked up. Take a nice tour of the airport. Alright, so anywhere around here then, huh? Eeny, meeny, miny. Let's go left and then right. Go into the little alcove here. These look like hefty double bridges, but I'm actually particularly looking forward to the Flight Beam Frankfurt. Love Frankfurt Airport, really cool area. There's usually a lot of ATC on around there, and the latest, well, the last scenery that was released is getting a little bit long in the tooth. Still a very good scenery by Aerosoft as well, but a little bit long in the tooth at this point. Released many years ago. So 518 is a double bridge. Let's skip that one. Let's go to 5. What is this? 506. Sounds good to me. Alright, quick sit rep. 506, 504, all of this good stuff here is apparently too small for our aircraft. So 518 is the one that we've selected now. And that was behind us. We had passed it. So what I'm going to do is a cheeky little U-turn here in the alley. Hopefully the passengers don't get too sick. And we'll reposition ourselves for 518, which was just a little bit too far for us to make a hard right into the stand. So we'll come back up this way. And here we go, 518. Sweet. Slow it down a little bit. Come on. Stop. There we go. So, APU is running. We'll just transfer the buses like so and shut them down. You know what? I'm going to get rid of TrackIR first. Like so. There we go. And with that, we will turn off the engine bleeds and turn on the APU bleed. Get the passengers some air. Seatbelt signs off. Should have already turned these off. Yaw damper can now come off. That's you. And what else? Anti-collision light off. A couple of the fuel pumps off. Hydraulics off. Window heat can come off. That's about it for the overhead for now. And we'll get these passengers and this luggage and cargo offloaded. Well, that pretty much does it for our flight down to the Italian capital. I'm going to stick around here for a few days and enjoy the sights and sounds before we head off to our next adventure with Fly UK. For anyone considering this scenery from Aerosoft, stick around and we'll take a quick tour of the field. Otherwise, I'll catch you soon, and as always, I wish you all blue skies, tailwinds, and I'll see you in the next episode.